grew. Sorry, that was stupid. I got extensions. They're just clip-ins. I'm still trying to figure out how to style them, so if they look weird in this video, don't tell me because I'll be insecure. I also know I've worn this recently, but it's like my comfort sweater right now, and I'm going to wear it. Have I washed it? Maybe. Yes, I've washed it since the last time I filmed a video in it, but have I washed it in the last 3 days? No. But hey y'all, I am back and I have more of your paranormal stories that I'm very nervous to read today, and I'm gonna hop right into it because I said what I needed to say, and I have more to ramble about at the end of the video. These stories seem absolutely insane. I'm really excited to read the second one because I stopped myself from reading the whole thing. It was getting good when I stopped. So I'm very excited for the second one. I'm excited for all of them, but I really want to read the second one. But this first one says, we lived in that house for 3 days. Hey Courtney, I've listened to your YouTube while working at home for years now. I'm currently procrastinating doing any more work until I've downed my iced coffee, so I figured it was a perfect time to finally share one of my stories. It isn't my scariest story, and it's probably nothing to some, but it was a short-lived, thankfully, nightmare for me. I'm currently 27, but the story takes place when I was around 9 or 10. I remember it like it was yesterday. My mom and then stepdad had gotten married not too long before they started house hunting. He lived in a town about an hour away and outside of our school district. My younger brother, probably 5 or 6 then, and I absolutely refused to switch schools. The house hunting didn't really last too long, and they bought a house about 10 minutes from my hometown. It was an old house, and being empty when we first saw it had given a naturally creepy feel, but I had felt a pit of doom in my stomach the first time I saw it. Let's get into the night that I knew it wasn't just a creepy old looking house. Move-in day. We had our cars packed up with what we could, and we were headed to the new house. It hit me so suddenly that something was wrong. I'm sure others know what I mean when I say that I had this horrible gut feeling that something really bad was going to happen or that something was just not right. I don't get these feelings often, but I've always gotten them, and when I do, something is off, and my mom knew that as well. I tried to hold it in as long as I could, but the feeling just kept growing, so I spat it out to my mom. She took me so seriously that she pulled the car over to the side of the road to listen. I couldn't pinpoint exactly what was wrong, but I tried my best to explain that something bad is happening or was going to happen. My stepdad was in the car behind us and pulled over when we did, but he thought we were crazy. He essentially told us to get over it and to keep going. That night, once we got everything we needed out of the car, we tried to get as comfortable as we could since we didn't have all of our furniture moved in yet. The feeling was still there, but there was nothing else I could do besides try to calm myself down and convince myself it was just a little anxiety. What didn't help was our dog not wanting to go into the living room, and when he did go into the living room, he would just defensively stand towards the corner and bark non-stop. I refused to go into that room for the duration of our stay as well. Since it was a school night, it wasn't long before they wanted us to go to bed, but the last thing I did that night was sleep. My brother was afraid to sleep alone with it being a new house, so he and my mom wanted me to stay in his room for the night. To be honest, I was okay with this. No matter how annoyed I could get with my brother at that age, nothing could have convinced me to sleep alone that night. My mom had left the bedroom doors open a crack just in case we needed anything. Even though my brother fell asleep quick, it didn't take any time at all to feel like I wasn't the only one awake anymore. I can't remember what we had on the TV, but what I do vividly remember is trying to concentrate on whatever it was so that I could avoid the overwhelming feeling of being stared at through the crack in the door. I found it hard to not stare back, but knew I shouldn't. It had gotten to me enough that I eventually went to open the door to see who was staring at me. As you can guess, no one was there. I tried to give myself a mental pep talk, but shortly after I got comfortable and started watching the TV again, the walking started. My stepdad has always been able to hear practically any noise while sleeping, so with the TV down so low, there were obvious footsteps going up and down the hallway. Not just footsteps, but the creaking that goes along with them in an old house. I, again, tried to ignore it and focus on the TV. I think I even genuinely tried to force myself to sleep just so I wouldn't have to listen to it anymore. Eventually, I had gathered up enough courage to go see who was out there, and you guessed it, no one was there. Somehow, I managed to fall asleep regardless of the noise. My stepdad wasn't going to take anything I had to say seriously, so it was just brushed off, but my mom had done her best to comfort me the next morning because she had experienced the exact same things. While my brother and I were at school the next day, my mom was alone in the house and had started unpacking in the kitchen. While she was putting the dishes away, she heard/felt someone whisper her name into her ear and was terrified when she realized that she was the only one there. At the time, she thought it was probably my stepdad messing around with her, but to her horror, he was still at work. I probably wouldn't have even known about this incident if it hadn't been for him making fun of her that evening while we were trying to figure out why our dog still hadn't stopped barking. Everyone felt the heaviness or whatever was happening there at this point, but we all just tried to ignore it. That night, while I was dealing with the staring and walking in the hallway, my stepdad and mom had an experience that was the final straw for my mom. In the middle of the night, my mom had woken up to my stepdad on his hands and knees, looking through the floor vent, mumbling to himself in a panic. My mom, obviously scared and confused, tried to wake him up and get him back into bed, but was given the response, "They're coming after me. They're coming after me." He was having the most realistic nightmare that he was being chased by hundreds of demons with knives and pitchforks and was looking through the vent because that's where they were coming from. Through the vent was the living room, where my dog refused to stop barking at the corner and where I refused to go. The next day after school, we didn't go back to that house. We stayed at my grandma's that night, and I personally never stepped foot in the house again. I'm not quite sure of all these next details, but apparently my mom had it and found the history of the house. The extent that she would mention to me, which was still a lot, was that the previous owner had been involved in some not-so-good activities and had eventually ended his own life there. I have a feeling there were other things that may have happened that I was never told. I've never dug into the details too much out of fear. I don't know why, I just feel as though I'm not supposed to know exactly what went on there. Every time I drive by that house now, the pit of doom returns. They bought a house a few miles away shortly after what felt like an eternity in that house. Thanks for reading, and I'm sorry it was so long. I spent an hour trying to write this out the best that I could and should probably get back to work now, but I'll be posting some of my other experiences soon. Dude, I can't believe, that's okay. I know I tell you guys just leave all the time. You're the only person who's ever done that. You're the only person who's like, we just gotta go. We just gotta get out of here. The staring in the door, the door being cracked and you just feeling someone staring at you. That is the scariest feeling. When you just know you're not alone anymore and you know somebody's looking at you, but there's no one actually looking at you, but you feel it. I don't know. I hate that feeling. I hate it. Okay, this next story is actually from Cleo. I just read one of their Let's Not Meet stories, but it's called I Was an Idiot for Ever Agreeing to Go to the Cemetery That Night. Hello, I'm Cleo. I use they, them pronouns. Just want to preface that this will probably be pretty long as I add a lot of detail, but I hope y'all enjoy. I was 17 when this happened. Life was thoroughly kicking my ass and I had some questionable friends at the time who weren't very nice to me. It was Friday the 13th, I think in June. I live in Australia and it was winter here. The days are short and cold. I had dropped out of year 12 and was attending TAFE, it's T-A-F-E, a form of further education here twice a week. I decided to skip class that day and instead hung out at a friend's house. Let's call her E. She was the nicest of my mean friends. We just sat around and shot the shit until around 5 p.m. when she told me a couple of our mutual friends were coming over to hang out. I felt my heart drop and an uneasy feeling settle in the pit of my stomach, knowing they'd want to get into trouble and would bitch me out if I declined. They came over, we'll call them M, T, and L. We were still just hanging out, M and T passing a joint back and forth. It was around 7 p.m. when L grabbed his bag and pulled out a Ouija board, a wicked, shit-eating grin on his face. I felt sick just looking at it, knowing without a doubt in my mind that they would call me every name under the sun and I still wouldn't touch the board with a 50-foot pole. So who's keen for a little spirit communication in the cemetery? L asked, lowering his voice to what I assume was meant to be a sinister tone, but was ruined by the fact that his voice still cracked at least once every sentence he spoke. You're fucked, mate, M said, rolling his eyes as he passed the joint to T. But sure, why the fuck not? L cheered at this, looking at the rest of us expectantly. M was kind of the unspoken leader of the group, and as soon as he agreed, the rest were on board. I sighed as I gathered my belongings and we all piled into M's car and made the short drive over to our hometown cemetery. For some context for the next part, I want to explain the layout of the graveyard. There's a bit of a winding road to get into the car park, with an asphalt road down the middle of the area, lined on either side by towering oak trees. At the back of the graveyard, there's graves that date back to the 1700s and 1800s. Around this time in history, there was a genuine concern that people appeared dead but weren't, and would be buried alive. So a contraption was set up that consisted of a long tube that connected from the inside of the casket to the top of the grave and had a bell attached, with a string threaded into the casket so if, on the off chance that someone was alive in there, they could ring the bell and hopefully alert the undertaker. Now back to the story. I just know, I read part of this and I didn't read that, so I'm losing my voice. I didn't read that, but I read the rest of the story and I'm not ready. I'm not ready. We all got out of the car, standing in the car park for about 15 minutes while we had a smoke. The air was tense around us, giving me the impression that everyone else was as anxious about being there as I was. M was the last of us to stamp out his smoke, and with that, an unspoken signal to walk into the cemetery sounded. T started towards the newly added area of the graveyard where a pretty gazebo had been built with plaques all over it. L grabbed her arm and shook his head. No, let's go over there, he said, pointing towards the notably darker area where the super old graves were. My instincts were screaming at me to stop, run, leave, to do anything but go to that fucking area with these dumbass people. I had goosebumps upon goosebumps and every hair on my body stood on end. E seemed to notice how tense I was and grasped my hand, giving it a little squeeze. I gave her a weak smile and squeezed her hand back in return. Skipping forward a bit, I'd made it 100% clear that I would not be partaking in the Ouija board and that I would just sit and watch. Just as I knew they would, M, L, and T gave me so much shit for not joining them, but I remained resolute. They played a few times, waiting for anything to happen, but they couldn't connect with any spirits. My anxiety had almost entirely gone by that point, and I was doing my best not to laugh out loud as M and L started getting more and more pissed off that no one wanted to speak to them. T lit a joint and told them to chill, rolling her eyes at them as she passed it to me. I accepted it and had just taken a big drag when we all heard the sound of a bell ringing to our left. All of us froze, and I choked on the smoke in my lungs, gagging on the coughs I tried to suppress. "Did y'all hear that?" Elle whispered, looking at all of us with wide eyes. We all nodded, otherwise frozen. The air around us was dead still. There wasn't a single breath of wind at all. We all jumped when we heard another bell ring, this time to our right. I stood up suddenly, startling everyone. "Nope, nope, 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 fuck this, nope, nope, nope," I muttered in a constant stream, my heart hammering so loudly that I thought they could all hear it. "Fuck this off in every direction, I'm done, let's fucking go," I said forcefully, glaring at the others who remained seated. E stood up and moved beside me, just as a bell rang from directly behind where we were sitting, making T scream. The boys jumped to their feet, and I'm nearly tripping backwards over a low-standing grave. I caught and steadied him as Elle, the fucking idiot who would die first in a horror movie, walked over to where the closest bell had sounded. He bent down beside the tube that stuck out of the grave and stood up suddenly, hurrying back to us. "There's no fucking bell. Guys, there is no fucking bell attached to that grave," he said in a whispered shout, his usually olive-toned skin so pale that he almost glowed in the moonlight. He grabbed his bag, leaving the board on the ground. They had said goodbye and closed the session, and I knew they had no intention of taking the board with us. Another bell rang to our left, again, and we all jumped, backing away towards the oak tree-lined road. A bell sounded over on the other side of the road, and another diagonally from us, and another to our right, and another, and another, and another. It went from being dead silent to suddenly sounding like we were standing on the inside of a church bell, hundreds of bells ringing around us. So loud I kept screaming from the pain in my ears. They just kept ringing and ringing and ringing all around us. We took off running down the road, screaming and crying, a sickening feeling pressing down on all of us. We got back to the car, cursing as M dropped the keys. I made the mistake of looking back towards where we had just run from and could see an impossibly tall shadow of a man standing on the road between the last two trees in the row. Looking at the shadow made me feel so dizzy, like a million spiders were crawling all over my skin. I couldn't move or turn away, my eyes burning from not being able to blink. I couldn't hear my friends over the still screaming bells, and I couldn't draw a breath. My vision started to get dark, and I knew I was painfully close to blacking out from lack of oxygen when he grabbed my arm and dragged me into the car, rubbing my back as we piled into the back seat, not even pulling the door shut before M hit reverse and squealed backwards out of the parking spot. The gravel flew out behind us, and we did an accidental burnout when we peeled away, the bells still ringing the entire time. I glanced out the back window as we were speeding down the winding road out of the cemetery and felt my blood run cold as I watched the impossibly tall shadow hovering a foot above the ground where we had just been parked. My eyesight is pretty bad, especially at night, but I swear on my life that the shadow grinned at me. A big Cheshire cat grin that spread across its face. The grin wasn't translucent like the rest of it was, and I still have nightmares featuring that smile to this day. I've also not been back to the cemetery since, which saddens me as my great-grandparents and my grandfather are buried there, but fear of that grin, the shadow, and the non-existent bells overrides any desire to visit. Oh, and an important thing to note, Elle and M, again idiots they are, went back to the cemetery a couple days later during daylight and couldn't find a single goddamn bell anywhere. Not one. If you've got to the end, thank you so much for sticking it out. I've edited this as much as I can, but I'm unsure what parts to cut out and to shorten. I'm sorry. I'm loving it here so much and would love to share more if anyone's keen to read. Have a lovely day or night, and love you always, Cleo. Dude, that is like, okay, I say this all the time, but that has to be one of the most terrifying stories I have ever read. Because there are a lot of stories I read that are very scary, and I hate them, and I hate reading them because they freak me out. But this one, if I was in that situation, that would be the worst thing that would have ever happened to me. That would have been the scariest, like nothing can top that. Being in that situation, that is the scariest shit. I don't think anything else could scare me more than that. Like being there and experiencing that, nothing could scare me more, nothing. Okay, I just had a cough attack, so if my eyes are watering, that's why. This last story, we're going wholesome with the last story because after the cemetery one, we gotta go wholesome. So this one says, I played hide and seek with a ghost. Hey Courtney, I've been watching your videos for a while and finally decided to share some stories. So before I start, I should probably explain that paranormal presences have been sort of drawn to me my whole life, and when I was younger, I could actually see spirits all the time. Unfortunately, I cannot anymore, but I still have a stronger sense of energy, and I still have many experiences. For this post, I'm going to do the more wholesome stories from my childhood, but I will definitely post about the rest of my experiences later. So the first story I have is from when I was about 3 or 4. I don't really remember much of the actual event, but my mom remembers her whole side of the story. Apparently my mom was looking for me, and she heard my voice coming from the basement, and it sounded like I was talking to someone. Now don't worry, my basement is mostly not scary, as it's more open and there's just a gate at the top of the stairs that we only have closed now so my puppy doesn't go down and pee on everything. Basically, it's just another level of the house, and not super scary as long as you're not alone, which most of the time you're not. Anyways, tangent aside, my mom walked down the stairs and saw me looking around and behind boxes and shelves. She asked what I was doing, and I responded, I'm playing hide and seek with great-granddad. My mom thought this was sweet because I was really close with my great-granddad, and he was one of my favorite people, but he lived in England while my family lives in the US, so she thought I was just pretending. Now, I still at 17, turning 18 in less than a month, vividly remember seeing my great-granddad in the basement playing with me. I even remembered that he promised me if I found him, I could get a white chocolate Twix, a candy I wasn't supposed to have a ton of, but he would always sneak me them when he was visiting. Anywho, after that, my mom left me downstairs to continue my game and called my Nana, who also lives in England, to tell her how funny it was that I thought I was playing hide and seek with great-granddad. My Nana then told my mom that great-granddad had been in a coma for the past day. My mom still thinks that while he was in a coma, my great-granddad came over the pond to play hide and seek with me, which also means he lied to me and absolutely did not have a white chocolate Twix for me. The next story is from a few years later after my great-granddad had passed. So I was like 5 years old and it was my first day of kindergarten and my mom went down to the basement to get something. She walked past her old printer and out of nowhere it turned on and started printing something. The printer wasn't connected to her computer, which was necessary for it to actually print anything, so this shouldn't have been possible. Apparently when she picked up the piece of paper, it had a heart and a smiley face on it. She thinks it was a message from my great-granddad for me for my first day. Sorry, I'm like really losing my voice right now, so if it's like more raspy than normal and like annoying to listen to, I apologize. My last wholesome story happened more recently, about a year or two ago. So when I was 4, my family rescued a 4-year-old English bulldog named Sadie, and she was my best friend. Because she was a rescue, we don't know what happened to her before we got her, but we think that she was beaten in her sleep because if you touched her while she was sleeping, she would snarl and get defensive. She was not an aggressive dog otherwise, so we knew to give her space. I, however, was apparently an exception to this rule as she would sleep on my lap and cuddle with me. Overall, we were very close. Spring of my freshman year, she was 14 years old, which is very old for a bulldog. She was dog-napped out of our yard 2 years prior, and we were able to get her back 2 days later. Then she had a stroke, so we decided that it was time to let go. That was a really hard time for me, but about 5 months later, we adopted a puppy named Bodhi. A year after we got Bodhi, we brought home our second puppy, Ajax, and Ajax was my dog specifically. One night I woke up to what I thought was Ajax sleeping on me, but then I noticed the weight was way too much to be my 4-month-old puppy, so I felt around but there was nothing there, and Ajax was sleeping on the pillow next to my head, so I started to get worried. Then suddenly the weight lifted and I heard dog tags jingling out of my room. I think that Sadie came back to visit me. I just got chills. I literally just got chills. I think that Sadie came back to visit me and make sure that now that I have another puppy to sleep with me that I wouldn't forget her. Those are the wholesome ghost stories that I have from my life, and I have a ton of less nice stories from high school that I can post later. Oh my god, wait, I literally got chills from it. That's so cute. As soon as you said that you felt weight on you, I knew it. I knew it was Sadie. Is that her name? I think it was her name. I knew it was Sadie. I knew it. And then when you were like, she got up, I was like, that is the cutest story I've ever heard. I think that's the cutest one. The other one is the creepiest. That's the cutest though. That is all I have for now. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you have any other stories I have to burp really bad. If you have any other stories you want to share with me or the community, I will have my subreddit linked down below. I'm gonna end this off really quickly because I have a lot of rambling to get to. So I love you guys so much. I will see you in the next one. Bye. Okay, so I told you guys I would be honest with you. I'm going to be honest with you. If you didn't watch my last video, I don't know if it was my last video, whatever, it was a couple videos ago, if not my last video. I think it was my last one. I told you guys that I was trying to quit vaping, I was trying to quit nicotine, and I did really well for a couple of days. I did really well. I have like something deep inside my throat right now that I cannot clear out, and it is so annoying. So I made it like 3 or 4 days without hitting my vape at all, and my withdrawals were like not terrible. Like it was bad, like my cravings were really bad, but like I didn't get any headaches, I didn't really feel sick or anything like that. I just really craved nicotine like really bad. And so then I had a really bad day, like a couple days in, and I hit it one time, and then the next day after that, like in the morning, I was like, I really want to buzz, like that's all I want. I was still a little like stressed / annoyed. So I hit it in the morning and got a buzz, and then I was like, well, I already ruined it for today, so I'm gonna hit it every couple of hours. So I did that. I hit it every couple of hours, and now I am hitting it all the time. So I hate my life. I have it next to me, and I hit it once filming this. My thing is, I think trying to quit cold turkey was just like destined to fail, honestly. And I got nicotine patches, but they weren't doing anything. Like they were not helping in the slightest bit. So I essentially was quitting cold turkey. So I think what I'm gonna do, my new plan, I have been keeping it in a drawer. I do not have it with me at all times. I needed it to film this video because I like kept telling myself I can't film unless I hit my vape, which is so pathetic. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna keep it in a drawer in my kitchen, and I'm gonna hit it every couple of hours. I'm not gonna have it next to me all the time. I'm just gonna hit it whenever I'm like super craving it, whatever. And I'm just gonna slowly go down time. So like I'll hit it every 3 hours today, and then maybe tomorrow I'll hit it every 4 hours, and then I'll just like keep doing that. And then like eventually I'll hit it like twice a day, and then eventually I'll hit it once a day, and then eventually I won't hit it at all. And I think that is a better plan for me. So I did fuck up, and I was doing really good. And I think I don't know, if I would have thrown the vape away, I would have been fine. I couldn't do it. Like I couldn't throw it away. I don't know why. So that's my new plan, and I think it'll be a better plan than trying to quit cold turkey. So I have hit it a couple times today. It's like almost 1 when I'm filming this video, and I hit it this morning. I hit it when I got home from volunteering, and I hit it during this video. So I've hit it 3 times today. I've been up since 6. So it's been 6 hours, I've hit it 3 times. So that's every 2 hours. I don't know. So tomorrow I'll do like 3 hours. I don't know. I'm gonna put it in the drawer, and I'm gonna try not to hit it like for as long as I can today. Just like get myself on a good thing, get a good thing going. I don't know. But yeah. So I fucked up, bitch. Yeah, I did. If you follow me on TikTok, you knew that because I posted TikToks yesterday, like kind of venting. But that's all I really have to ramble about. It was just an update, I guess, for you guys. I told you I'd be honest. I'm going to be as honest as possible. So yeah, I'll update you in my next video if I do better, because hopefully I do better. But okay, I'm gonna go because my throat really fucking hurts. I don't know why. But I love you guys so much. I will see you in the next one. I don't know why I'm outroing this. I love you. I love you. See ya.